about the crime. No one looks behind the curtain, and no one questions why. The only time we got is right about now. I cross my heart, I take the vow, I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. Tonight's the test, tonight's the time. I am the punishment that fits the crime. I'll break the bricks, I'll pick the locks. I don't got nothing, but I'll give what I got. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. 10 trials whose outcomes all fixed from the start. 9 judges sitting counting their money in the dark. 8 towers of iron surround the desert town. On a cold December morning, 7 martyrs knocked them down. 6 fathers still waiting for their 6 sons to come home. 5 mothers who know better and accept that they're gone. 4 years I've been hunted, still I breathe free. 3 times I shot the sheriff and did not spare the deputy. 2 prayers I'm praying until we're together. 1 promise I'm keeping tonight and forever. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end.
Good evening, welcome to Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. We're here in downtown Toronto on that channel. We're here till the end. There's rumors the end's going to be on the weekend, but we don't listen to rumors too much. And we're hoping we always change the paradigm just a little bit so the end is put off and put off and put off. And you can do that too by changing the channel. They can't deceive us, they can't trick us, they can't take advantage of us if we change the channel. Easiest battle that was ever won, easiest battle that could ever be won, but seems like a lot of people like a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. So maybe we'll have to see what happens after this financial collapse, or maybe Russia will really want to drop a nuke or 2 on NATO and get the whole thing started the way the elite rich really want it done. It's a tough choice to make, I guess. Mindless brain dead TV, a few little factoids to save your bacon. Difficult to say. As our song says, no one knows who gave the orders. That's been the story of the G20 and all the police abuses that happened in Toronto in 2010 for, a good long time now. No one knows, no one knows, no one knows. But as I opened my email to look at some pictures for the show, well then I see very quickly they knew. They got a big long list of people that are going to be coming up on charges, and they're going after command officers too for making bad decisions, as if that was hard to figure out. I think a few Boy Scouts about 12 years old probably could have handled this in a much better way and respected constitutional rights and liberty, still protected the people of Toronto and kept the peace. It's just they wouldn't look real funny, all dressed up in their riot gear. So, you know, it's a good thing I did garble through some of the local newspapers there, because one of the reports contradicts the other report. Of course, the Ontario Independent Police Watchdog report just says, you know, this was just an anathema of human rights abuses, outright false arrests, police brutality, pick one, you name it, it was done. Then, of course, the federal government's report for the RCMP said they did everything according to Hoyle. They didn't do anything wrong at all. And it's like I was discussing with Agent 99. If they didn't do anything wrong, then we have to redefine what right is. Because that's supposed to be their motto too, maintain the right. What right? This is what they looked like. I think we can see that there. This is a nice picture of, you know, our Mounties and the Toronto Sun in their G20 garb there. And, you know, like I say, it just looks like Tackleberry from Police Academy there. Like you got the pump-off shotgun there, your riot shield, the gas mask, the heavy body armor, all kinds of extra shells. Like you're ready to storm the beaches on Normandy. You had, at best, a busload of the Black Bloc anarchists, not terrorists, anarchists. If you were terrorists, it'd be like running gun battles through the street as they open up on you with some RPGs and heavy machine gun fire. Maybe leave a few bombs lying around to blow your nuts off. Then you know you're dealing with a terrorist. Like you just got to go to Kabul or someplace in Pakistan and you can learn what a real terrorist is, because when you turn around and you look at the wall, there's body parts smeared all over it. And they're you and your colleagues, because they'll blow up like a car bomb outside the police station. So it's like in the front page of the Toronto Star, Rosie DiMano had a nice little quote: anarchists are not terrorists, protesters are not anarchists, bystanders are not protesters, disruption is not violence. Now, how come she's not running the Ontario Police College? Like, it just seems to be common sense to me. Just because you're a pain in the ass and a bit of a shit disturber, that don't make you Abdul the terrorist. Just because you're protesting, that's your basic right guaranteed in the Constitution. I'm just hoping that, you know, they spend an hour or two on that somewhere along the training process to say that we, you know, Canada has a constitution. Pierre Trudeau brought it back from England and the Queen signed some papers and we have it on display at the House of Commons and it really looks pretty with all kinds of nice fine ink and it's under glass and all this sort of thing. And, you know, you swear an oath. The new oath has the Constitution in it. I was sworn before that, so I didn't have that part in my oath when I swore it, but you understood the Bill of Rights and how things go and that sort of thing. And you kind of respected that because it's all part of the greater scheme of things. You didn't have to, you know, we just wore tunics, which we don't like this. I should be in a museum, I guess. No body armor and, you know, just really laid back and easygoing stuff, like almost like a business suit. And then you look at these guys and it looks like they're going to storm the beaches. But of course they don't storm the beaches. That's something a real man would do. They just find helpless people in a wheelchair and beat the crap out of them, or some, you know, older woman who's not all that physically fit probably, and you know, they got the big like almost like hockey goal pads on their legs, and you know, every inch of them's covered from head to toe. So you could really take a baseball bat to one of these guys and just thump them for hours until you get tired, and you're never going to hurt them because they're covered in that much protective equipment. But of course, you know, a postmenopausal woman sitting on the ground now, you know, deadly force is required, and they just start stomping on her with size 12 boots and all that kind of stuff and piling her into the ground, and that's okay. Now, if you did that in a domestic relationship, you'd be like the worst kind of scumdog known to mankind. But where's the government? Yeah? Jawohl. We can do anything we want to these bitches. Kick them, knock them, tear them apart. We own your soul in the new debt bondage system. And you live with that illusion that you're free. Well, you're not free. So seemingly this report made 42 recommendations, which are probably, you know, 99% useless anyway, but they made them. supposed to be a code of conduct. Well, there already is a code of conduct. There used to be an unwritten code of conduct a long time ago when the world was much more different. It was called being a gentleman. And as a gentleman, you just didn't kick the crap out of people in a wheelchair or menopausal women lying on the ground protesting or not. Just wasn't done. See, that was just like an unwritten code that if it was violated, really wouldn't make you look too good. But see, in the New World Order, we don't do that now. We don't do that now. And the Chief of Police's response is basically it just doesn't matter. He goes, so you can't prove anything. Prove anything? We already proved everything. We have eyewitness testimony. We have video. We don't need any more proof. It's more than enough proof to convict anybody of anything. The only thing we don't have proof of yet, or maybe we do, because one of the superintendents confessed, Superintendent Fenton, he confessed that the chief gave the ultimate order to take back the streets. Now, not being a victim of many blunted blows with a ball-peen hammer on my head, I would instantly, not being a police executive, assume that he meant taking it back from the black bloc anarchists who were starting fires and breaking windows. But it appears I'm wrong. All the high-priced help that make six-figure salaries and have all shiny uniforms with all kinds of nice stuff on their shoulders and medals, because they've been around for so long and all this sort of thing, they just said, no, that just means anybody you can grab a hold of. Not even like in an old movie with Humphrey Bogart where it's round up the usual suspects. This one's round up everybody. Pummel them, beat them into the ground, send them to the Auschwitz-style concentration camp jail, deprive them of food and water, and humiliate them to the nth degree. But of course, if you follow my show, you know we wrote a G20 report. It's archived in our website, conspiracy-cafe.com. So you just Google in the little search engine at the top of the blogs, G20, and that's enough to bring that back. There'll only be a few hits. And you can read that this was basically a scientific experiment to test what the police would do if they were forced to do you, like they're planning to do, without telling them what the end game is, to round you up for execution or whatever, and to see how far the people would be willing to take it. And that included a multiple phase test of how you would react in custody to various abuses that will be hurled on you, how you will react to your fellow citizens being rounded up, because it'll be just like, it's not like you're taking out your neighbors or the guys at work, just strangers in the street. Would you do anything about it? And the test failed. The test failed because people at home who saw this on TV, fortunately by luck, there was a city TV reporter in the roundup at Queen and Spadina, they started broadcasting this to the world to show the people what was going on. And in the articles I've read in the press here in Toronto today, many of the police who were in this thought it was wrong. They knew their leaders were wrong, that they weren't handling this properly. So here's the guys at the bottom end figured it out. They understand that you're way off base here. And the people at the top are Looney Tunes. So that's why it's not a career-enhancing move, but that's kind of the ones where you just say, like, Sarge, just between me and you, buddy, this one don't fly. And I ain't going to do it. So you better find somebody else. I'm booking off sick. See you later. And you might catch some hell for it, and maybe you won't, but as we see in the long-term focus of hell, some of these command officers are the ones that are going to be punished soon. Not nearly punished enough, because they declared war. Whoever gave this order, if it was Chief Blair, he declared war on the people of Toronto for no reason. Because that's what they did. They just went absolutely balls-ass maniac-y crazy and just started thumping people for no reason. And basically the whole fabric of society and our concept of law enforcement has been completely and totally destroyed and has to be rebuilt from the ground up. And that's why I said from day one, disarm, disband, and fire the whole rotten crew. And then start putting it back together again. Finding real leaders, real role models to be executive officers in the police forces, and real people at the bottom end But don't think it's fun kicking the crap out of people in wheelchairs or menopausal women or the other guy there, Mr. Adam Nobody, who told the truth about what his name was and got the living crap beat out of him for no reason. And then a gutless and spineless government who just stood by and let it happen. Like, you know, everyone has to be affiliated with some sort of organization, doing some kind of job, or goes to a school somewhere, or does something, volunteer work even. You must have an affiliation with something. Imagine you go to wherever you go to, and you pulled a stunt like this, or you beat the crap out of somebody who's like broken down and helpless. Do you honestly think you're going to be there the next day? What gives these guys the right to think that they should be there the next day? They should all be fired. Period. We've seen it with our own eyes. We don't need a report and an investigation. It was on flippin' City TV News. Just start firing people. Where does the buck stop? Who gave the orders? Okay, maybe we'll let you go if you're at the bottom end because you're just doing what you're told, but that's the Nuremberg defense. So we got to dig up all the old Nazis and pardon them because that was their excuse. We were just following orders. So it's either right or it's wrong. So if we're saying following orders is right, all the Nazis have to be pardoned. We never send one back because they were just following orders. And all the command officers are dead. But we said, no, that's wrong. Following orders are wrong if they're unlawful orders. And that puts you between a rock and a hard place, but that's why Chief Harding of Halton Regional Police told me a long, long time ago, it takes lots of courage to be a peace officer. The courage to do what's right when you know you're going to catch hell for it from your superiors. That's guts. Facing danger is just something, well, anybody can face danger on any given day. But telling the boss he's just bald-faced wrong, in a nice way, I hope, that takes guts. Because you're walking on a high rope and they got a little saw to cut it. One of the other big things that came out of the G20 is we also had a verdict in the case of an activist by the name of Byron Sawney. So, you know, an activist is kind of like, I guess, when we look at this list here, he's not an anarchist. He wasn't really a protester. He was just an activist. So he wasn't a bystander. So, you know, our girl here at the Toronto Star left one out there. Rosie DiMano there. There should be one in the middle, you know, activists. Well, you don't have to show that. Those are just my notes to read because my photographic memory doesn't work. But, you know, an activist is in between a protester and a bystander. So you're neither an anarchist or a terrorist, you're just an activist. I'm an activist, I do a show. I guess this guy didn't know any better to do a show because he didn't know there was another channel to switch to. So his big sin was he took a picture of the G20 fence. Not like there wasn't like oodles and oodles and oodles of pictures of the G20 fence. Motion picture pictures from the news, still pictures from all the various news organizations. There were pictures of the fence all over. There's nothing new. It's like, wow, that's a top secret fence. Wow, that's something like from DARPA. That's the DARPA fence. No, it's just a flippin' fence, buddy. Rented from a normal fence company. So that got him in trouble. So they track him down and say, ooh, you took a picture of the fence. Then they start looking into his background. They say, oh, you know something about computers. You know, you're smarter than a monkey at the zoo, so that's got to make you a terrorist. Then they find out, oh, he's got a hobby. You know, he flies rockets. And he knows about chemistry. Oh, wow. Don't you understand? This is the Taliban Dark Ages. Knowledge is forbidden in the New World Order. No one must have knowledge. You have to be dumber than a stump to survive in a police state. The only thing you have to know how to do is lick the boots when we put them on the floor in front of you. Grovel, pig! But don't think, don't understand, don't learn. We have to be dumber than stumps. And you wonder, and then they tell us we got to compete in the global economy. Woo-hoo. Compete with what? Like it's probably like a kid in grade 5 in China knows more about chemistry than most of our university graduates. Compete with what? How do we understand about, money and the economy and laws and social justice? Like, it's just not even the blind leading the blind. We've got like stupidos on top of stupidos that are so stupid. My God in heaven, how can anyone say that Darwin's theories were correct? We've never evolved. We're devolving slowly down, just like you flush the toilet. The water's just going down and down and down, and the fecal matter that some people pretend are their brains are going down too. We go to our federal police force. So the women in our federal police force are abused by their superiors. So there's a class action lawsuit going on, and one specific lawsuit with the Corporal Catherine Galliford saying she's been sexually assaulted and abused during her whole 16 years with the RCMP. Starting right out at the training academy, when the staff sergeant at the training academy is like, making advances or, getting pretty nasty with her, exposing himself. And then she's on like one of these task forces to go after all the sadist killers they happen to have in British Columbia from time to time, working with a cop from Vancouver. His name was Phil Little, and I guess Mr. Phil Little was trying to show he was a big man, so he exposed himself to her too while they were working undercover. Not under the cover, undercover. And then you gotta wonder, if that was anybody else. Like, you just walk down to the street wherever you are, whip it out, baby, and see what's gonna happen to you. They're taking you down. Unless you're a police constable or a middle management guy, the RCMP or whatever, then it's different. You can keep your gun and your badge and all your power and authority and just go on a holy jihad. You can even take down your own people, and that's okay. So this poor woman's been on sick leave since 2007, got post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, they must have hassled her pretty good. And you just got to wonder, like, what the heck for? What kind of deviants are we hiring in the police, and why are they aspiring to management jobs? Probably because the whole system's like that. You see, they were probably part of one of these, serial pedophile rings or homicide rings to get victims for the elite rich and the politicians. It's like they have this mass conspiracy at the top, where the crooked cops don't rat out or arrest the crooked politicians, so politicians can steal to their heart's delight, take all the money they want from the treasury. It's okay, because they'll never do anything to interfere with the crooked cops. So they can run roughshod over anyone, anytime, and that's why nothing's ever done. It's the only logical conclusion you can come to. It's like I've said before, it's just basic science. You can prove an invisible force in science by looking at how everything reacts around it. So in science, that could be like the effects of gravity or speed of motion, weight, mass. You can tell by how things act and react around each other that there's something there you can't see with your eye until you identify it. And that's how we can see this criminal cabal at the top of the police and the politicians, is because we can see the end results. When you have a tragedy, a travesty that needs action taken, nothing's done. In a private company, that just isn't going to happen. Not at all. But it happens in real life. Justice Department plans to sue Arizona Sheriff Arpaio. So Sheriff Joe is doing too good a job, I guess, at becoming a national public figure, so the federal government's going after him, telling him to shut up. Put some muscle on him. Because they don't ever want to dare having another guy like Ron Paul running for some sort of office that can put pricks like that in the slammer where they belong. They say, I'm not going to be part of your New World Order crap. We're locking you up. It's bloody treason you're committing. Grand larceny, theft, possibly murder, and many, many other things. So you get an honest man at the top, or getting close to the top, things are going to happen. So what's the government's response to some of these, maybe more noble people? They want to make a special prison for veterans. Well, why should our veterans be in prison? Well, part of it is probably because they were ordered to do the wrong thing right from the start. So they've been killing, murdering, and they know in their own hearts they've done wrong. And when they come home burdened and punished. They didn't fight a noble and just war, probably because there ever has been such a thing and there never can be such a thing, except under very rare circumstances. So that just leaves them wide open to substance abuse, alcoholism, and all sorts of other things. And they have convicted themselves, and this is why this is such a very, very difficult process for these people. And maybe, yes, to be in a special prison where they can get common therapy and maybe be amongst each other to sort some of these things out, they'll find some resolution. But they can't get the resolution from the government because the government is the one that sent them to commit the crimes in the first place. So you can't ask the orchestrator of the crime to help the victims of the crime because they can never admit that they've done wrong or that it was wrong in any way, shape, or form to murder children. I remember hearing once on the Power Hour, a guy who was a helicopter gunner with one of those big 50 caliber Browning machine guns. And he's just blasting away and having a grand old time. And then he pops a little kid and he just watched the thing explode like an insect on a windscreen. Well, you know it was a little girl. You know they were no threat to you. You can be in denial at every level forever, but you know in your own heart what you did. You killed an innocent child for no reason in an illegal war that never should have happened. Everything was just lies and bullshit. And that guilt is on you until you release yourself from it. And when you release yourself from it, by asking for forgiveness from the people you've hurt, if you can, from God especially, that's what the Lord's Prayer is all about. Forgive us our trespasses. Big trespasses, little trespasses. It's all the same. You have to be forgiven, and then you have to forgive yourself. Because you allowed yourself to be deceived and tricked, and you've done this evil. Make amends, atone for it, and you can move on. And you won't need the drugs and the drink and all the rest. As long as you want to live in denial, it's never going to get any better. So a lot of Christian counselors out there would probably be glad to help people get past their burdens. And don't feel bad about your burdens. Everybody's been tricked and manipulated by evil at some point or another. It's just part of being human. The devil's superhuman. It's easy for him to take advantage of you. He's coming at you from 50 different directions and probably 40 of them you never heard of before. And like I say, a lot of us do even worse. We commit sin by omission. We don't help our brothers. We let them starve every night. Starve to death, die of disease. Nobody bats an eye much. They're still dead. Just because you didn't pull a trigger and watch them explode doesn't absolve us too much. We have to ask forgiveness for that too and try to straighten ourselves out. We have so much, we have so little to share. That's one of the biggest reasons why, the ship's going to sink, right? It's because we're just not doing the things that are going to bring blessings upon us. Everything's just like this mad dash competition for cash. Winner take all. It's evil. One of the other big things is we love our money more than we love God. And I think God's just going to say, well, if you love your money that much, enjoy it. See what happens. I'll just stand off to the side and watch until you come begging back. The Pentagon establishes a new espionage unit called the Defense Clandestine Service. It's not like we don't have enough alphabet soup companies, but this one can stay under the radar screen, so we can always blame the CIA or something like that when it's really one of the other ones, although the CIA has their version too called the National Clandestine Service. Everybody's got a clandestine service of one or another. Everybody. Except that channel, we don't have a clandestine service. We don't need one. We just do everything up front and face forward, which is the way to be. There's been a lot of Google Doodles, as you probably know by looking at our website, conspiracy-cafe.com. They have a common theme. The theme hasn't changed. Everything's apocalyptic. They look so innocent and benign, almost happy, But when you go really deep and look into it, like the hunt for red Mercury, Howard Carter, this doodle continues with the march to the apocalypse, as I say. The cover story is the birth date of noted archaeologist and Egyptologist Howard Carter. We have to stand in complete amazement of the complexity of this doodle. You see, with continuing research, I have discovered the language that we are working with. And it was written about in a book called The Copycat Effect. I still got to get that one for myself. It's called the Twilight Language. People have seen these things other than me. They've studied them and written about them. It's not like I'm pulling this out of my hat. So I read and study a lot, and I've seen patterns. Patterns in events that happen, that unfold, that I've seen before they happen. Many, many times, as you know. And when I see these patterns, like, it's not like I'm an idiot. You're just going like, wow, how did I read this or come to understand this a week before it happened or 2 weeks before it happened? And then it happens. There has to be a reason for it. Either it's done on purpose or there's some really bizarre synchronicity in the universe that the future is in the past and the past is in the future, and we can flip coins about the present. But this code goes into the Egyptian underworld. Mr. Carter in the picture staring at the tomb of Tutankhamun. The New World Order worships the sun god Amun-Ra. Pharaoh was his representative on earth, and that's where we came up with the term Amen. So be it, because Pharaoh is God, living God King on earth. So when we say Amen, we're conceding to Pharaoh his power as God on earth. And that's why when I learned that after studying some things about Egypt years and years ago, I became very, very unsettled about saying that term in church, the end of hymns, especially the way it's sung. It's a very deep guttural sound. Amen. It's just like, hey, tell me we're not back in ancient Egypt returning to bondage, paying homage to a God that is a false God. And the first commandment is about the real God. And we're not doing that. And then sometimes we wonder, well, why doesn't prayer work effectively? Because that's one of the things the New World Order's done, is they put a monkey wrench in the gears to sabotage your communication with the Lord. So that when you invoke innocently the name of another God in your prayer, God's just going to stand back against the wall and say, hey, you like Amen so much? Let him come and fix you. Because he gave you a choice. He even laughs about that. Well, not laughs, but talks about it in Scripture. That if you want other gods, you want to follow other gods, go right ahead. Knock yourself out. But don't come running to me unless you mean to come running to me. So that's why I refuse to use that word in prayer, period. I would just stay silent if I was in a mainstream church and they said that word, or I would just use God's name as it's supposed to be, the one we can't pronounce, Yahweh, in the best rendition that we can make. At least then I'm heading in the right direction, and my phonetics are something that can be corrected or something like that as you learn other languages. But that's a very important point. That's one of the most powerful tools the evil has used against us, is they sabotaged our ability to pray effectively to God. And just because we've done it 1,000 times for 1,000 years doesn't make it right. It just means we've done it wrong for 1,000 years, 1,000 times. So when you figure one of those things out, that's time you change. You just go, ooh, ooh. Like, if you walked off a bridge, crash into the ground 50 meters below, you go, wow, I don't want to do that again. Unless you're just your typical normal person, then you just climb back up and fall off the bridge again. Because if you'd fall off 1,000 times, then you're not going to fall off the next time. It'll be right. Insane. So one of the great mysteries concerns the search of understanding for a substance called red mercury. So when you look into ancient Egypt, red mercury was supposed to be a chemical that they used for the embalming process of the god king. This is supposed to be something, as it existed, if it still exists, that could be used to make very powerful weapons in ancient civilizations or societies that may very well have blown themselves up. So that's one of the sources of red mercury. It's still a chemical today. And we explain it very clearly in the blog, and we also connect it to a chemical organization, to chemistry scientists to talk about it. The first is mercury sulfide, HGS. The second is mercury 2 iodide. The third is any red-colored mercury compound originating in Russia. The fourth is bolotechnic mercury compound. This is one that goes bang, and then that of course means we're building a bomb, aren't we? It is theorized capable of triggering a fusion reaction. Now that's a big bang. DuPont has even registered this chemical, a liquid explosive, Hg2sb2 07. And then another one is a code name in the military concerning any new nuclear material. So you don't really like seeing those in your Google Doodles, let me tell you. So this substance is supposed to be traded on the black market. It's going around. There's allegations Iraq even had red mercury. So when they were talking WMD, maybe they did have a version of WMD, a WMD that was so secret that no one could talk about it. Red mercury. Then of course, with the Egypt angle, we see one of the other things that were in the tomb of Tutankhamun is of course Anubis, our dog, or sort of dog, evil god creature that leads us to the underworld. Then he's traveled all over the world. They said that when this happened, when they brought him to London way back when and took him to other capital cities as well, that this was something evil, totally evil, because the London Olympics now are coming up, and we've had Anubis come there to lead London to the afterlife. And why would we leave London to the afterlife? Because they have plans to reduce the population or to start World War III. That's one of their big toughies right now. Usually after a big economic collapse, they start a world war of some sort. Then of course in our previous code we talked about the little flying Batman X there. And this is something that comes up as well. The Bat X-Man. The X is mentioned in this super encryption statue that's at CIA headquarters. This is it here, called Cryptos. A lot of people have had trouble. They've never broken. There's 4 levels to Cryptos. Nobody's broken level 4. But in level 2, it talks about X many times, a place. Only WW. This was his last message, 38 degrees, which is a location, pretty much close to the statue at CIA headquarters, implying that there's something buried underground. Does Langley know about this? There's things being transmitted underground. There's lots of allegations, of course, that we've had nuclear explosions in Virginia underground, some kind of running battle of some sort. We pull a lot of good stuff out of our hats with this. And then one of the most important things about 9/11 coming into this was Delmart Vreeland, who was supposed to be an Office of Naval Intelligence officer, was held in a Canadian jail before 9/11. He wrote down that 9/11 was going to happen and exactly how it was going to happen. And this material was put in a sealed envelope and left with the warden of the jail. After 9/11, it was opened and it was clearly revealed that he knew exactly what was going to happen. Not bad, because nobody could have figured that out, right? Seems everybody knew, even in jails. He was in contact with a Canadian diplomat by the name of Mark Bastian in Moscow who was poisoned. And he even mentions in his interviews that there was a substance called red mercury that they were going to use in the 9/11 attacks. It's a very powerful explosive, something that could probably easily melt the steel and give the effects of something akin to thermite that Alex Jones talks about a lot, because he probably never heard of red mercury. Probably a lot of people have never heard about it. If you've never heard about it, well then you can't put it in your analysis, can you? But he said that that's what they had. And one of the big things we have to worry about is, are they telling us that they're going to do something with red mercury at the London Olympics? Because this isn't your normal explosive chemical. It doesn't exactly explode in the traditional sense. It isn't tagged and tracked in its traditional sense. And it isn't radioactive until it's actually exposed to a fission reaction and made to be radioactive. So it can easily be smuggled about and still have devastating effects. So the big conspiracy or angle about this is it real? Does it exist? Can it work? And one of the top nuclear scientists who invented the neutron bomb said it can work, that it is a very viable weapon that can work. And I have to say that we have to take that on good account that he's probably right. All the links in there are very valid and ready to go. So will we see an explosion like this in London with our red mercury cloud going up in the air? Who knows? And then one of the other things, of course, since Egypt was in the topic of discussion here, Whitney Houston's funeral. They have Egyptian sarcophagi outside the rear door, a pair of them like bookends. And then on this sign, see, that's why you got to look at pictures. That's one thing Alex Jones and I have to agree on. He said that many times. Look at the background. Look what's in the back. So there's words here. Nera. I looked that up. Nera. Nera is a mythological figure. Talks about roping the ankle of a corpse and leading it. So just like Anubis, it's leading you to the afterlife. This one's leading you too. It spews fire and death. Nera warned people they were to destroy the hill crouching for their protection. Was Whitney Houston warning about something? And is that why they took her out? It's hard to tell, because we're not in the loop. Maybe we would never want to be in a loop like that. They take out a lot of people, and that's, you know, one of the sad parts, because we did have a death just the other day of Mary Kennedy, another alleged suicide. She was supposed to have hung herself in a building just outside of the building where her body was found. And, you know, we see this poor woman who married into the Kennedy family, had children, a mother. She was divorced, unfortunately. And she was arrested for drunk driving, so she was probably having a tough time. But it's just a, you know, a terrible thing that if this is a real suicide, that we lose another one. They've paid such a heavy price. There's Robert Jr. playing with his kids and such like that. It's just something that really has got to knock you around there. You know, you lose a president, you lose another potential president. John Jr. killed in that stupid plane crash, which was probably murder. That's one of their favorite ways to take people out. He was probably going to run for mayor of New York, right? He would have been the mayor on 9/11 if he did. And we couldn't have a mayor like him, an honest guy who's looking for truth, trying to figure out what horrible, evil cabal killed my father, and be mayor of New York. Like, it's just not going to fly. You got to get somebody else. So you kill him because he'd be a shoo-in. Who'd vote for Giuliani when you could vote for John Kennedy Jr.? And he thought very much that, you know, I'll just stay out of federal politics and it'll be okay. But he walked into the Bush family clan again. So we have a Bush look-alike at Dallas, outside the school book depository, photographed in history. Senior or junior CIA agent by the name of Bush, registered with the CIA at the time. Of course, that Bush denies it, but, you know, sounds like a good story to me. I'll take it. And then, of course, he just almost walks into a potential ambush by being a mayor of New York, so he has to be eliminated from the body politic. They're good at eliminating from the body politic. So one of the big internet stories is this week, America implodes May 18th. It begins or it ends. We got this G8 thing coming up, the NATO summit. So the G8 was moved to Camp David. Camp David is also just right around the corner from a major bomb shelter, the major bomb shelter. On the 20th, they turn on the first step of the NATO radar, which is something that's really irking the Russians and irking them to the extent that they'd like to start a first strike. So that's got to really knock your socks off. So let's play this May 20th Day of Reckoning, if we can there, Aaron, and show people in a short little vid what we're up against.
Владимира Владимировича Путина. Выносится государственный флаг Российской Федерации.
Within hours of Vladimir Putin's inauguration as president of the Russian Federation, he signed 14 executive decrees dealing with economic and strategic matters relevant to both the internal affairs of the Russian nation and internationally. However, the true context of the current political arena is what Russia may be forced into, and consequently all nuclear powers, especially China, given the insanity of US President Barack Obama as he serves the intention of the British royal family to reduce the world's population to less than 1 billion people, currently echoed by the British Royal Society April 2012 report. The commitment of Barack Obama to hold fast to policies that will unfold the British royals' intent to depopulate the world was a matter challenged by one of Vladimir Putin's decrees on the first day of its presidency. That is, that the United States must come to guarantee that ballistic missile system in Europe will not be used against the Russian Federation. NATO is about to declare the ballistic missile defense system operational based on the completion of Phase 1 and partial completion of Phase 2 of its 4 announced phases. In his decree on foreign and defense policy, Putin instructed the Russian Foreign Ministry to take cooperation with the United States to a truly strategic level, but said that those relations must be based on equally non-interference in internal affairs and respect for one another's interests. In particular, Putin's decrees tell Russian diplomats to be committed to Russia's position regarding the creation of a global missile defense system by the United States of America, seeking firm guarantees that it is not aimed against Russian nuclear deterrent forces. Obama administration officials have said they are set to declare that an interim missile defense capability is operational on May 20th, the first day of the NATO conference to be held in Chicago. Russian officials already stated in Moscow's defense conference of May 4th that if Russia remains in the dark by the US with cooperation and guarantees that the systems will not be used against Russia, preemptive strikes are on the table in a period of an escalating situation. Dmitry Rogozin, deputy premier, stated that the creation of such missile defense systems will not be allowed.
Не сможет создать так называемую противоракетную оборону, которая даст одной отдельно взятой стране, ну, скажем так, ощущение своей безнаказанности. Потому что реально это иллюзия, какие бы деньги в нее, так сказать, не вкладывали, именно потому, что мы никогда не позволим им создать такую систему и нарушить стратегический баланс.
May 20th could be the day that nuclear war is initiated. May 20th could be the date where the road to a thermonuclear holocaust begins if the power of Barack Obama is not nullified or removed constitutionally before then. May 20th may be the day of reckoning. Proposals have come from the Russians, namely during President Putin's second term in office, for cooperation on missile defense. The plans were rejected by the Bush-Cheney administration in 2007, but worse, President Barack Obama has not only continued the policies of a deranged administration that dragged the United States into an illegal war in Iraq based on sexed-up intelligence given by former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, but has accelerated the efforts intended by Tony Blair and the British royal family's rabid commitment for genocide. What will be of this world during the upcoming NATO events this May if we do not remove this US president now? Many may not live to see a November presidential election, and the few who do may regret that they ever did.
Oh, that's a nice cheery note. But a little dose of reality never hurts because we can change realities. Painful ones anyway. When I was reading in my God Code book as I finished it off today, they said they had a negotiations philosophy in ancient times where they would bring aggrieved parties together. When you would look at what the best case scenario is and what the worst case scenario is. So the best case scenario is maybe we make friends, have some vodka and watch a hockey game. And the worst case scenario is we blow ourselves up to Armageddon. And then we kind of go like, well, we don't really want the worst stage, do we? And maybe we could have a little fun having the vodka and watching hockey, even if we're not hockey fans, because it's a whole lot better than picking broken glass out of our teeth after the nuclear explosion. Okay, you know, maybe there's some grounds we can work on to become friends. So they figured this out a long time ago. And that's why, you know, another reason why we could say Darwin was wrong and we're still going down, because it appears all the really smart people today in the business suits can't figure that out. So the big thing is, like, what the hell do we need this missile defense shield for? If it bothers them that much, they want to blow us to kingdom come and back again, well, maybe we can get rid of it. It's not necessary. The other big thing is it probably doesn't work. And as I see from one of my more detailed pieces on this, when it gets to stage 4, they don't have enough funding for it anyway. So it's probably not going to fly. And a lot of the stuff that's put off is put off to very far into the future anyway. So we're not really getting anywhere with this. Stage 1 is supposed to involve these Aegis, you know, missile cruisers and destroyers, and some radar in Romania. Then the second stage is supposed to go up with interceptor missiles on the ground in Romania. So it's like a Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. And the fourth stage wasn't supposed to be ready till 2018 anyway, and that could take out Russian missiles. So that's still a long way off, but you know, Russia sees this as coming, as the, you know, the dark hand is coming over it. So, you know, the Russian strike back, we played General Makarov's speeches. We played Medvedev's speech. That's archived. We have the video on our website in the video section. You know, put his name in the search engine. There's only one in there that's going to come back, as I recall, and you can listen to this long, protracted speech. And then when he gets to the end, he just lays out points like he's preparing for war. That was in 2011. So this General Makarov isn't just shooting out of his hat. He's repeating what the head of state said the year before. In a Christian perspective, we have to know that, you know, as the return comes like a thief in the night. And that's why basically we're here in a small room talking to a smaller audience, because we see the thief in the night. No one else is looking, and no one else really cares. They won't care until it happens, and then they're going to care very, very much, because there's no going back after that. Once the financial collapse happens, there's no going back. Once an Armageddon scenario happens, and the missiles are released, it's just like, you know, I'm very big on firearm safety. You know, once you pull that trigger, that bullet's just going where it's going. There's no power on earth going to bring it back. Whatever it does, and that's why you have to always point your muzzle in a safe direction, always keep your finger off the trigger, always keep a gun unloaded unless you're going to use it, and have all kinds of, like, very, very good safety rules. It's far more important with nuclear missiles, because once you fire them puppies and they blow up, you're never putting that genie back in the bottle. So I think this is just absolutely bizarre. On one of the, you know, bizarre conspiracy angles, like Valkyrie was the name of one of the systems they had, Stellar Valkyrie, which is you know, a Norse name. You know, another one, Chooser of the Slain, specifically a female who leads people who fall in battle to the afterlife, just like Anubis. So this is like another thing that comes out of a lot of these you know, carry-ons from Google and such, but this isn't specifically a Google code. But I have some poetry there that was from the old stories, and you know, it's just amazing. These people have really thought about the names that they use. There's General Makarov and Dr. Strangelove from the movie Dr. Strangelove. It's just, if you haven't seen it, it's something to watch, how they blow up the world. But one of the most important things, like we talk a little tongue-in-cheek here with Medvedev telling Obama, you know, when I push the button, you throw in the towel, because we really have to take into account, what if President Obama, because he doesn't have any ID, because nobody knows who the hell he is, and he doesn't have a background, and nobody gives a rat's ass, what if he is a communist agent? What if he was planted in there to throw in the towel? Because there's something very, very important about what Russia's done. Russia's been preparing for a fight for a good few years by doing something in the global high-stakes poker game. Can we show the video about the 5,000 bomb shelters?
5,000 new emergency bomb shelters will be created in Moscow. The city has just given architects the task of coming up with the designs. So let's speak to our correspondent Ivor Bennett to get a few more details on this. Ivor, Why do the authorities want these shelters building? That's the big question.
Why? Well, it's because there are only enough shelters at the moment in the city to house and shelter around half the city's population, which, compared to other places in the world, isn't out of the ordinary. That figure is sort of 50% coverage. For example, Switzerland is the only country where there are enough shelters for the entire country's population. But Moscow wants to build another 5,000 shelters, not necessarily because it's expecting nuclear war. We shouldn't be running for cover or anything like that. It's a precaution, because in the last 20 years, this area has been very underdeveloped. The current shelters, a lot of them are outdated and unprepared for this situation. A lot of them have been privatised, for example, and are now restaurants or bars. The Moscow metro system, that was specifically built, its station specifically built very deep underground, so they could double as air raid shelters. For example, the station I'm standing outside right now, Mayakovskaya station, that did just that during the Second World War. And in 1943, it famously was the site where Stalin addressed party leaders and ordinary Muscovites in a Communist Party meeting during the Second World War. But these shelters, 5,000 will be built because basically there aren't enough at the moment, and in the next 2 years the plans will be developed for their construction.
Okay, so we've got the time frame, but Ivor, where are they going to be located and what will they look like?
Well, they'll actually be quite small, hence the high number of them, 5,000, and they'll be dotted around all over the city, because the metro system at the moment, in the outskirts especially, is quite far away from where a lot of people live, and the authorities say that in the event of a nuclear outbreak, people need to reach one of these shelters within a matter of minutes. So they'll be basically where people congregate, so underneath apartment blocks, underneath shopping centres, sports complexes, parks, places like that. And they won't be very deep, not as deep as the metro system, around 10 or 15 metres deep underground. And there hasn't been any mention of cost yet, but a prototype is being developed at the moment. The architects have been tasked with that, and so that this uniform prototype will be developed, and that apparently will speed up production by 10 to 15%.
Okay. I know we don't have any bomb shelters that we're building. We couldn't even get the subway built here in Toronto. We had to go for light rail or something. Big fight about that. And you wonder, like, how the depth and breadth of this fight. You know, maybe Mayor Ford, because he's friends with Bilderberg buddy Stephen Harper, was trying to, you know, hey, like, we got to get underground because the gloves are going to come off soon for one reason or another. We're going to instigate something, and we don't have a place to get underground for safety. So the subway is one of the, you know, few refuges you might have to get away from the end result of man's madness. But in the big grand stakes poker game now, when it comes nose to nose, Russia can put a lot of their people underground. China can too. I've talked about that on shows ages and ages ago, that underground Beijing is like 10 times bigger than above ground Beijing, and Beijing's a big city. So they can put a lot of people underground. They don't really care about a lot of the other ones either. Getting rid of them is a favor for them. But it's like they're getting ready for something, and we're not. So when it comes to it, it's like, okay, we're toe-to-toe. The Mexican standoff. You're aiming your nukes at me, and I'm aiming my nukes at you. What are you going to do? Well, one of the big things is, if we shoot, they're going to shoot back. We're going to suffer horrendous casualties that would make winning losing. So no matter what happens, we lose. The best case scenario for us is to surrender. And that way, we'll have minimum loss of life, compared to losing maybe 30, 40, or 50% of our population base. And that's why I put the little anecdotes in there from Dr. Strangelove or something. Let me find that there. Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat, toe-to-toe with the Ruskies. Mr. President, I'm not saying like we won't get our hair mussed. I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed. Tops, depending on the breaks. Well, the big break says we're going to get broke. And that's where you start to look at some of the things happening. Like, one of the big ones is just almost like the rabid passion the federal government here in Ontario wants to destroy all the records for long guns. And are getting into big fights with the provinces because we have to save that one life. Well, we could be facing people, Superintendent Watts of the Ontario Provincial Police, you go and do a little movie research project on the long weekend and watch a movie called Red Dawn. Or the one we have posted here on our website, that classic with Chris Christopherson, America, what it's like to live in an occupied state. Because that's one of the big reasons they might want to make all the guns disappear, because it's just like you went back in time again to when I was a child and it was the Cold War. and you had to be worried about something like that, you know, maybe we can't go toe-to-toe with the Ruskies because we don't have any bomb shelters. We didn't make any. We can't make any fast. And if somebody pushes that button, we're going to die in droves far more than they are. And some maniac at the top end may go, okay, I lose 10% of my population, I win the globe. Fair price, launch one. Or they do it with that classic false flag thing, so we blame the wrong person, and then two nuclear powers go and duke it out that had absolutely nothing to do with the whole thing in the first place, and the third one just sits back and goes, ain't that a shame? I'll have to leave the world now. Because there are allegations all the time of a missing nuke. We've talked about them too. So Putin's not going to go to the G8. Israel's not going to go to the NATO conference. Because they say they weren't invited. But they have a good habit of not showing up to places sometimes when the heat is on, as they say. Is this one of those occasions? Is the heat on? And then, of course, we have the, the Raven thing, Valkyrie. So in the classic thing, how is it, ye ravens, whence are ye come now, with beaks all gory, at break of morning? Carry and reek ye carry, and your claws are bloody. Where ye near at night time, where ye knew of corpses? And then, of course, the bunker next to Camp David is Raven Rock Mountain Complex. There's your bird. It's ready there to take you to the afterlife. And like they said in the Bible code, our President Obama will be sworn in a bomb shelter. That was one of the big things in Bible Code 3. Also, in many of the little side parts that nobody reads or understands, there's some guy named Friend who delays wars. And we've done that, and other documents I have here in my pile we can cut to the chase as time marches by so fast. But they mentioned very clearly that they were trying to smuggle nukes into New York and Washington. Something happened in the state of Virginia on August the 23rd. There were two big explosions. They were written off as an earthquake, but there's allegations that nuclear weapons were intercepted and exploded underground in a battle between the dark side and members of the United States Air Force. Can't confirm that, can't deny it, can't prove it. But I do know that I was reading the Google Doodle saying when they had that big-ass hurricane in New York, they were getting people out of the way to plant something and blow it the hell up. And there was no mistake. Reading that twilight language that I'm getting pretty good at, I could see through the tea leaves. And of course they talked about another one where some idiot was going to take an assassination attempt on a Saudi ambassador, which is really a cover story for a whack attack on the president with a blue model airplane. We broke that code 10 days or whatever before it happened to say somebody's got a blue model airplane. That's on what's logged here. We wrote about it. I was even tempted not to even write about it. I'm going like, man, I'm reading this stuff, but a blue model airplane, like, to do what? To do what? To start World War III, that's what. Of course, your lives aren't worth spit anyway, so don't donate anything to this show to keep it on the air. So before both those events happened, the friend that they talk about in the Bible code, who may or may not have the same name as I do, because that's what my name means, pulled that trump card out of the pile twice. And we delayed, as it said, the atomic war. So the next step is the huge atomic war. Can we delay that one? If we all put our heads together and try real hard, we can. And this is a call for, we got to work from behind here. Those ones are easy because, they gave me time on the power to talk to a mass audience around the world to bring this up. And that may have instigated a lot of people, if there's any truth to some of these other stories, to do what had to be done and put this monkey to rest. People with real honor to the Constitution, to the people of the planet Earth, to God, to say, that's enough of this monkey business. I'm not going to let that happen. And then, of course, the Capitol Dome doesn't end up looking like this, where you have like the nuclear wasteland, and then it's change, right? He promised change. Well, there's change. You can't walk there for a good few years. And then this one's just kind of cute. Time waits for no man unless it's the doomsday clock. Your move. And it's your move. What are you going to do? You're going to sit down? This is participatory democracy, participatory freedom. It doesn't fall out of the sky into a cup. You got to get off your ass and earn it. It's like one of the little sayings that came up a long time ago is, see the need, take the initiative. Okay? I want my arms and legs blown off. I want to see all my children die. I want to die a quivering little ball of jello on the ground with radiation poisoning and severe third-degree burns in agonizing pain because it's fun, but I don't want to give any money to the Conspiracy Cafe show because we can make changes and divert the flow of energy and ideas, because there is one guy who can read their dynamics somehow and divert this. I work on this long and hard. It's like having a full-time job and a half to do this. Even the Mother's Day one was a code, because they had the Dutch word for I and the French short form for general. I on the general. General who? General Makarov. So you see the Google Doodle there with the oog. That's I in Dutch, and the GLE, which is general in French, short form. Then, of course, there just happens to be a story written about this. It starts with day 666. I wonder what that could possibly be. Talking about drinking blood and things, firing things coming from the sky and yada, yada, yada. Makes no bones about it. This is the second time Google's done this with the I, oog, concealed here on the train. This time they were talking about a Japanese train. And, of course, the ultimate eye, the all-seeing eye of Horus. You don't have to make it up. It's there for us. It's there for us all the time. We see it all the time. You can almost smell it. And then the funny one is, they come out with the Gachi bomber again. That's Canadian for underwear. And the CIA's got this guy, and it turns out, okay, the guy they got who doesn't get a name, he'll never get a name, and they probably killed him already anyway. He was the Lee Harvey Oswald, the fall guy, the guy to take the heat. They were setting him up, it appears, in my opinion, but the whole media jihad here is this cry wolf scenario all the time. This is what the government does, cry wolf, cry wolf, cry wolf. But if they read some of these books, or if their parents read some of these books to them when they were children, they would understand that crying wolf doesn't work. Because then when the real wolf comes, nobody's going to listen. And you're going to have to take on the wolf all by yourself. So even these little grade school fables from our youth have significant meaning in the Pentagon and the White House, because they don't even understand the basics of preschool literature. And they're in charge. They're mad. Because they cry wolf all the time for nothing. And then they didn't even know that the guy that they were alleging to be the next underwear bomber on an airplane was really a double agent working for MI6, the Saudis, and the Americans all at once. They gave him a British passport. He wasn't a British citizen, so they can give a passport to anybody. So it really doesn't matter what kind of security you have, because the intelligence agencies and the government can give you any kind of ID that they want to give you. Period. End of story. They got all the machines. Then this guy was supposed to get on a plane with this explosive. It would be blown up. He'd be killed. A lot of other people would be killed. They blame it on, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We start World War III, everything's happy, happy, happy. But this guy was smart. He realized, maybe in his little cave in Yemen, he watched one of our shows or read one of our blogs to realize, I'm a patsy. This is a false flag. I've been set up. They're going to kill me. What do I do? Well, the only thing he could do is he went to outside of the loop, law enforcement or intelligence, not the dark satanic side, and just said, look at my underwear. They were going to put me on a plane and blow me up. This is the latest, the best, yada, yada, yada. And then they think they got the real McCoy, the media circles, the wagons. They go in the propaganda jihad, get everybody scared again. And we got the ultimate weapon. But now the plot's been exposed. Well, they can't leave this guy to say, I'm a patsy. So they come up, say he's a double agent, pull him out. That's probably a lighter side. The lighter side, of course, we come up with some jokes here to say, this is the ultimate of the underwear bombing here is, you ignite it with a fart and blow them all to kingdom come, and that's the latest invention. Could very well be. Who knows how mad some of these people are. And then the big joke, of course, is, when they bring all this out now, then, everybody's going to have their underwear inspected as well. But by and large, what I look at is this was the Lee Harvey Oswald patsy who came forward to try to save his neck, because he knows it's either suicide mission or get out of this. Then there's another story going out. U.S. military warns of Federal Reserve bankers to have CIA mercenaries from Libya kill New York cops. I've heard this before. It could be a BS story. It's difficult to say. But they were speculating that Hillary Clinton has been contracting with mercenaries to come to the United States and start something. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Who knows? But we got to ask, and this was the article, of course, that came out with the rehash of the bombs going into New York City and the model airplane blow-up attempt. They have nothing to do with me. I have nothing to do with them. It's just background information that kind of supports what we have to say. Then, of course, the other big thing that, you know, maybe some people are talking about, maybe they're not, this is also the eclipse weekend. So when they start these conferences, they're having a massive solar eclipse. The Ring of Fire, the sun god, Amun-Ra, will be up there for all of them to worship. And what do you got to have with it? You got to have some human sacrifices, right? Like, it just goes without saying. So they're going to pull the plug on something this weekend? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't think it's going to get that hot and busy that, you know, we're going to be ducking and covering under our desks there in the nuclear apocalypse. But if we keep poking a stick in Russia's eye long enough, we may get that reaction back too. So let's show the little vid on the eclipse, and don't forget to wear your grade 14 welding glasses, because that's the only thing going to save your eyesight on those. Those eclipses can burn your retinas pretty good.
Since Russian General Makarov's warning to the United States late last week that the continued pursuit of a U.S.-European
2012. En este programa especial realizaremos un análisis sobre lo que está sucediendo y lo que aparentemente podría suceder en este 2012. Las profecías, las expectativas que se han generado, el 20 de mayo que está a tan solo una semana de distancia y que quedó impreso en al menos 2 figuras en los campos de trigo de Inglaterra. Aquí le presentamos este análisis para empezar este programa especial. Durante el 2005, el 9 de agosto, y luego en el 2011, el 22 de julio, aparecieron estas figuras que señalan al 20 de mayo como una fecha especial, y también, desde luego, al 6 de junio, que representa el tránsito de Venus frente al Sol. Realmente interesantísimo lo que aquí le presenta Fernando Correa.
El 9 de agosto del 2005, en Wildlands, Smithy, Inglaterra, apareció esta magnífica formación con símbolos mayas. Trazos exactos que contienen un mensaje de los eventos astronómicos más importantes del 2012. Al centro, el eclipse anular de Sol el 20 de mayo, en el día cero de los mayas, cuando el Sol se alinea con las Pléyades. Y alrededor 16 plumas que señalan la fecha del tránsito de Venus, 16 días después, el 5 de junio, cuando será visible como un punto oscuro pasando enfrente del Sol. Este importante mensaje se repitió el 22 de julio de 2011 en East Kennet, mensaje que nos habla otra vez de los 16 días entre el 20 de mayo y el 5 de junio del 2012. Al centro, en el día cero, el eclipse anular. Formaciones con mensajes impresionantes que nos hacen poner mucha atención y considerar la posibilidad de que acontecerá algo muy importante durante estos eventos astronómicos. El experto en escritura maya, Sergio Calderón, analizó el significado de las formaciones.
Vimos que en el centro había un eclipse, pero este eclipse está como dentro de un huevo. Entonces, en idioma maya hay 2 maneras de decir cero. Una es mabal, de no hay, y la otra es he, que es que quiere decir huevo, y es el cero también. El día 20 de mayo es el día cero zodiacal. O sea, tenemos 13 signos de 28 días que nos dan 364. Y el 365 es el día cero o fecha cascabel.
Y 16 días después, el tránsito de Venus.
Encontramos 16 plumas alrededor de este día cero. 16 días después del 20 de mayo es el 5 de junio.
2 formaciones con el mismo mensaje. El eclipse en el día cero, el 20 de mayo. Una fecha trascendental que también se relaciona con otras 2 formaciones, también con símbolos mayas.
En 2006 apareció el símbolo Lamat.
El 15 de agosto del 2006 en Wiltshire apareció el sello del 8º día del calendario Solkin, el símbolo de Lamat.
y luego el 2007 apareció el número 6.
Efectivamente, el 13 de agosto del 2007 apareció en escritura maya el número 6. En el calendario Solkin se combinan 13 numerales con los símbolos de 20 días. Escuche con atención.
Tenemos que el día 20 de mayo es el 6 Lamat.
Resulta notable, estas dos formaciones se relacionan con otras dos figuras donde nos reiteran las fechas del 20 de mayo y el 5 de junio. Mensajes que conllevan a estar muy atentos durante los 16 días entre el 20 de mayo y el 5 de junio del 2012. El planeta entero, como nunca antes, se prepara para observar el eclipse anular y el paso de Venus frente al Sol. En tercer milenio, desde agosto del 2005, estamos esperando el desenlace de estos mensajes. Permanecemos a la expectativa en esta investigación. Desde agosto del 2006 estamos a la expectativa por la aparición de este mensaje, que luego se repitió en julio del 2011. Falta muy poco tiempo para saber qué ocurrirá entre el lapso del tiempo del 20 de mayo al 5 de junio del 2012. Nosotros estaremos a la expectativa.
So the New World Order is good on picking their dates. Those will be dates to watch. They do too good a job, maybe we won't be back next Tuesday. That's the next scheduled day for us. So we'll have to mind our P's and Q's and say our prayers to the real Lord of hosts, not the illusions that they give us. That's something I'm going to have to work on. It's like the 10 most valuable things they've taught us that are worthless, so that we give them no value or heed anymore and sentence ourselves to death. Of course, number one would be they try to teach us God is worthless and that he doesn't exist. And then we'll work on a few more. Greece is really in a pickle. Of course, they have the new French president elected there, Francois Hollande. Wants to have a 75% tax rate. Well, that's like genius. Of course, he wants to take a pay cut to show he's a loyal man, but why would he take a pay cut? Well, it's obvious. It's that way he can fall in the lower tax bracket. They wouldn't take 75% of his wages. There's a smart man. Probably has a pocket calculator. Well, the whole concept of what's going on in Europe is, one, just breaking the basic rules of economics. The economy of scale. If it grows too big, it can't support itself, it falls apart. It's just like, you know, lesson 1, economics 101, they can't even handle that. One of the other big things that they have is not, you know, to lay blame or all sorts of things. The only way to help Greece is to use an age-old religious tradition called debt forgiveness. And then they can just walk away and rebuild. Because basically we're going to lose all that money anyway, and there's no way to stop it. So there's no use putting good money after bad. It's just, it's gone. Just forgive the debt, walk away. Yeah, it's going to hurt for a banker, because the one thing a banker can't do because they're Satanists is they can't forgive. That's a religious principle, so there's no such thing. They're satanic. That isn't going to work too good. They keep talking about their more globalization with harmonization, one of the key buzzwords they like to use. The Bank of England can use this quantitative easing, get the printing press going. Germany's not too big on that. A lot of the other countries are just on the ring of the bowl to fall into this black hole of debt. Ireland, Portugal will go with Greece. Then after that, you know, we don't have to worry about Italy and Spain, and then ultimately France can go down the hole. Articles are coming out in the mainstream news to say the euro cannot continue. We can't ignore it any longer. So they're starting to talk like Nigel Farage, our European member of Parliament that we really like to play and listen to, guy they almost killed in a plane crash because he's just talking plain common sense. You can't live on borrowed dreams. I'm up to here for whatever debts I have, so going out and borrowing, you know, 3 or 4 times as much doesn't relieve me of the problem I got down here. Mortgage means death grip. Then you got our Christine Lagarde, one we used to like to pick on before. We still do. She's always got her face in a jewelry store window, and she says she's unaware, or they're unaware of the anti-austerity feeling across Europe because they don't understand. They've never had to live like that. Greece has a 75% chance of leaving the euro. Collapse of the Greek stock market is just, you know, a certainty pretty much. They want to raise this VAT tax. There's, like we have in Canada, the GST, our value-added tax. on all goods and services sold. This is just putting a chokehold on any chance for growth. It's like I try to strangle you while you're trying to run a race. It isn't going to work. Because there's other basics in economics, the supply and demand curve. By adding the value-added tax, you raise the price. You raise the price, of course, you reduce the demand. Ergo, you can't rebuild the economy. It's not going to work. Ireland votes May 31st whether to ratify their fiscal treaty. Ireland is pretty much bankrupt. Germany has a one-size-fits-all thing, and this is something I've said all the time. You can't have one big economic policy for the whole European Union. You need all kinds of little central bank policies to just look after your own little community. Small is best. You have to be local to be effective. Nigel is also warning about mass civil unrest in Europe, which is probably an understatement. Neo-Nazis are on the rise with this Golden Dawn party that's coming up. We have to really be concerned about a revival of that. Mein Kampf is something that's supposed to be coming back into Germany to be reprinted so we can all learn how to do it again. Greeks are withdrawing their money from the banks, very wise thing. They say there's no panic yet, but one of the dumb things about withdrawing all your money from the bank in this mass mode is it's like the Titanic, right? You're on the Titanic. The bow's going down. What does everybody do? Well, they run to the stern. Doesn't stop the ship from sinking, just means you bought a little time. What you've done is you're pretty much guaranteed the ship's going to sink because there's massive capital flight going out of Greece when it needs it more than it ever needed it before. It's like pulling out the IV, blood serum going into your body at a crucial moment when you're down 2 liters. And you're not filling it up anymore, and you're actually taking out more blood out of another arm even to make it worse. So that's not going to work. There is a way that can work. One of the ways that can work is you do like I've always said. They're talking about converting back to the drachma. Here's an old drachma that's still got value. Okay, this king's long dead. George I, he's gone. 1884 Greek 20 drachma coin. Okay, so even though there's no Greek government like that anymore, there's no drachmas, this thing still had 0.1867 ounces of pure gold, and that has value. So it's still, the value is in the coin, still valuable today. Doesn't matter what lunatic's in charge, it's still like what's going around 1,500 and something an ounce. Don't be surprised if it doesn't go down to 1,400. That's what one of our gurus was saying when I did a beginning of the year analysis, that gold would drop, then it's going to rise again significantly after that as the panic sets in. It's not an investment, it's a lifeboat. But one of the beauties of having gold is you're not taking the money out of the country. So item one is you're also spending, right? So if I got whatever it takes to buy that coin in euros and I spend it, the guy that gets the money is going to spend it again. He's going to pay off debts, he's going to buy stuff, the money gets into the economy to work. But at the same time, I still got the money that I spent in this gold coin. Doesn't matter where I put it, safety deposit box, buried in the garden, whatever, you still got this gold coin. And if millions of people got these little gold coins all over Greece, as the economy starts to falter in various places, well, people are going to have to spend them. And they're going to have to convert it back to cash and bring this money back into the economy. That's going to be like a stimulus package. Millions of little stimulus packages all going on all at the same time, like little fleas on your body making you itch. But the big thing is, it's not inflationary. And you don't have to borrow any money or sign any contracts or terms to cut your throat. And unlike Canada's glow-in-the-dark dinosaur coins, maybe they'll have to build one now for Europe as well. And this one will have the European dinosaur on it, Eurosaurus Rex, to glow in the dark. Because that's about all the value you're going to have out of Greek coins when this happens. And things like, the Bank of England Governor, Mr. King, he's saying the same things Nigel is. This is the biggest downturn since the 30s. They've never seen a banking crisis like it. The people who reasonably hope to sail serenely through this with growth close to the long-run average and inflation at 2% strikes me as wholly unrealistic. So bad in Greece, there's articles in the Daily Mail of parents actually not just giving up their children, but selling their children. JP Morgan Chase, $2 billion down the hole. It's probably way more than that. They blame it on Voldemort or Voldemort or whatever his name is from the Harry Potter flicks. But he's probably just a fall guy. There's stories on the conspiracy end of things that go, they probably lost the ship on that one. And they're just giving you a little tiny cover story that this derivative trading may have really created a massive hole and taken us down. There's talk of China coming in to buy United States banks, that they're being cleared to do this. China's growth is falling. This whole planet is on the edge. Then of course the Arabian countries are talking about their economic union. The Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, the Saudis still trying to lead these people. Hey, let's get some globalization. And you learn from the Euro and the European project, this violates Economics 101, the economy of scale. It's a recipe for disaster. So they talk about economic potential when they start pushing this thing. The potential for what? The potential for total disaster is what it's the potential for. Obama has dropped a sex bomb, talking about gay marriages so that everybody can turn their heads somewhere else. A convict in prison got 41% of the West Virginia primary votes, beating Obama. His name was Keith Judd. Way to go. He's probably way more honest. Probably wouldn't get us in a war with Russia. And then there's talk, of course, about a really big one coming down the road too, where some guy's supposed to be a confessee from the Department of Homeland Security saying, we're going to do a big one, and we're going to get it going, admitting that the stuff with Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin was rigged to get people going, saying that Louis Farrakhan is on the CIA payroll, that they want to really get something going to turn America into a total police state. Timothy Geithner's father worked with Obama's mother in Indonesia. Coincidence? Big coincidence. And then I probably don't have time to get into the tribunal hearings in Kuala Lumpur, because I'd have to scream and yell a lot about that one. What we did to people was just so evil. It is beyond description. And then just a little safety feature, I guess. We can end with two quick safety features. Get a helmet. You can buy a construction helmet at Walmart for like next to nothing. You can have a bicycle helmet, any kind of helmet, pretty cheap, or you can get in a more expensive one. One of the big things for tornadoes and hurricanes, they found there's a lot of people that die or get seriously injured from head injuries. And even though they don't have an approved helmet, just put something on your head. Even if something's coming at me at 200 miles an hour or 500 miles an hour, even having this beside my head might keep something from penetrating the old cranium and turning me into a paraplegic or a vegetable, because I just happen to have this handy. You just duck and cover under whatever you can. So maybe the CDC or CDC, whatever, they're going to take 20,000 years to figure out what kind of helmet's best. And if there's a nuclear war, then you're going to have horrible winds with stuff flying through the air. So anything that you can protect your eyes or your head with is money well spent, let me tell you. And of course, one of the big things to have is those, just like for the eclipse, those level 14 welder's glasses, because that's going to be a very, very bright. You ever see welder's helmets on sale with that glass in them? Buy some, because if you ever got to go outside while they're doing a little duck shooting at you, that may save your eyeballs, or just cover one with a patch just in case. And they put Agent Orange 2,4-D in your food, just to mix that with your drinks. God bless them, eh? Anyway, we're at the end of our rope. Randy wants me out of here in 90 minutes because the boys have to get ready for the weekend. So we thank you for coming to Conspiracy Cafe. This is your one and only point of the sword source for information. There's nothing like it on the planet Earth. We interfere and interdict in military attacks, terrorism, nuclear warfare, and save you from going through the apocalypse. I think that's good value for your money and your time. Dare to live, dare to take chances to say it, because if you can't say it, you're going to have to wear it down the road. We'll say it. That's why God picked me to do this. He knows I'll say it no matter how weird or crazy it looks, because the bottom line is we keep coming up with winners. Every time I go to the slot machine and I pull the handle, it always comes out with the bars. That tells me something. It's amazing how many things we've interdicted with this show or being able to do this. If you can help us out in any way on the PayPal account, send in checks or money orders of an international basis that are cashable in Canada, we'll take them, because every little bit helps. The lives we save may be our own. Hopefully we'll be back here Tuesday night, same time, and carry on a little more. This is Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. This is that channel. There's nothing like it on the planet Earth. Good night.
About the crime, no one looks behind the curtain, and no one questions why. The only time we got is right about now. I cross my heart, I take the vow, I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. Tonight's the test, tonight's the time. I am the punishment that fits the crime. I'll break the bricks, I'll pick the locks. I don't got nothing, but I'll give what I got. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. Trials whose outcomes all fixed from the start. 9 judges sitting counting their money in the dark. 8 towers of iron surround the desert town. On a cold December morning, 7 martyrs knocked them down. 6 fathers still waiting for their 6 sons to come home. 5 mothers who know better and accept that they're gone. 4 years I've been hunted, still I breathe free. 3 times I shot the sheriff and did not spare the deputy. 2 prayers I'm praying until we're together. 1 promise I'm keeping tonight and forever. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end. I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now